Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 19th of March, and this is Indexer Office Hours 149. For anyone who is new to Index Office Hours, this is the town square where ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. This is a conversation, and we love participation, so you can get involved in today's conversation via voice or text. You can obviously see the text box in the corner there. And if you would like to get involved via voice, please do let me know, and I can try to get you sorted out if you're having any mic issues. Yes, it is episode 149. It is very exciting. We have come a long way, and I'm excited for 150 next week. As a reminder, this is a session that will be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's exciting agenda. So I'm going to give a shout out to GRT IQ episode 160 with Daniel Keys. And Daniel Keys is the co-founder and CEO of Pinax, one of the core developer teams in the Graph, which many of you already know. And if you've been following the podcast, Matthew from Pinax has been interviewed on the GRT IQ episode, and so this is another addition to the Pinax. This is another episode from another Pinax member. In this episode, it was very interesting. He talks a bit about his early career in broadcast and journalism, and then he spent some time in banking, and then he talks a bit about how he went from all of those things that he was doing over there and transitioning into crypto, working in it full time, and how he came to found Pinax. He also goes on to speak about EIP 4844 and blobs. So if you're interested in either the backstory of Pinax, a little bit about Daniel's background, or EIP 4844 and blobs, please do check out that episode. Let me see if it's already linked in there. It is quite as fast as always. Cool. And with that, I will hand over to Anna for our regularly scheduled Repo Watch.
Thank you, Abel, and hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. All right, so this week on RepoWatch, starting as always with execution layer clients, we have had the new release of 𝗨𝗀𝗟𝗶. This is version 182, and it just includes a collection of bug fixes and improvements in preparation for the launch of the new fee currencies, and this is highly recommended for all users. We are running this against the 𝗨𝗀 testnets, the Alpha, Horez, and the Baklava ones without any issues. We also have had a new release of Arbitrum Nitro. This is 232, which improves batch poster support for EIP 4844 and fixes a rare state corruption issue with debug tracing requests. We're also running this release on testnets without any issues. There's also a new release of Heimdall. This is 105, and it includes bug fix associated with staking. And consensus layer clients, no new releases, and same with GraphStack. So I guess super short and super sweet. Handing over to Juan.
Thanks, Anna. Well, mine is going to probably be a little bit shorter. So for forum governance, we don't have any new updates. For forum research, we also don't have any new updates. For the contracts repository, we have a few PRs, some closed, some open. The open one for the subgraph availability manager deployments, and the closed ones are for bumping a few dependencies and updating the README. For network subgraphs, we don't have any new updates, and that's pretty much it for Protocol Watch. Not sure if Paka has a shorter experience yet, but I'm handing it over to him to figure it out.
It's time. Let's go. Okay, I actually have something this week, so it's not shorter. Let me get the link. I mean, it's short. I'm not gonna lie, but it's here to fight crime. It's data. Okay, I'll stop.
Those need to be on the soundboard. That's amazing.
Reject all queries. So Project Watch. Only graph node focused this week. We're gonna have a new release coming soon, TM. And by that I mean this week or next. It's a pretty beefy release, so super excited to get more feedback on it and out in front of you all. So this is kind of just a teaser of some of the higher level advancements and additions, but more news coming very soon. And really excited to get this out. And then along that line, yet another release will be coming likely early April. Follow up with some additional features that we're working on that just aren't going to make it into this cut. Really trying to emphasize shipping often and getting features out to you all. So let us know if you all like this, and we'll keep doing it. Otherwise, did I not share my screen?
Yeah.
Totally forgot to share my screen. Caffeine is not hitting. That was less dramatic. New features for the upcoming release for this week. It'll probably be 3.5.0. One of the big ones that we're really excited on is aggregations, but also some quality of life improvements for subgraph developers just to call ether balances and doing other awesome things. The upcoming release for relatively early April that has some additional features that we're really excited on, and these are just some of the early candidates that we know are not going to make it into the one for this week. There's going to be more for the following release, but this is kind of just what's shaking out currently. And then here's a handsome double superimposed on graph stuff. Thank you. See you next week.
Amazing. I love the segment there. Always entertaining. Amazing. Okay, awesome. Now we will move on to the open discussion aspect of today's call. And I will be discussing, or we'll have an AMA or / fireside chat with the delegator as part of a new section called Delegator Watch, where I thought it'd be useful to bring on some delegators who are active in the ecosystem to share their perspectives on delegating to you indexers. And I thought it'd be a phenomenal opportunity for you guys to ask questions to those delegators to find out more about, some of their challenges, some of the things that they look for, and certain preferences, et cetera, et cetera. Because ultimately, we'd love for all of you to get more delegation. So I figured this would be a really good way to do this. So fortunately, we have 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂 with us today, who is going to share a bit about himself. And then I will ask him a variety of questions. And I would love for you guys to also ask questions as well. This is an active delegator, so someone I'm assuming, can learn from. So with that, 𝗨𝘀𝘲𝗂, do you want to unmute your mic and introduce yourself?
Can you hear me okay?
Indeed, yes.
I'm 𝗨𝘀𝘲𝗂. I'm delegator. I've been delegating since about 2021. My first delegation was with, I don't think they're here anymore, but Crypto Sniffers, if anyone recalls that name. And then I've had subsequent delegations with Data Nexus. I called it 0x63. Didn't really have a name, and DAPLooker. I've been active in curation, trying to stay involved with that, and also involved with Advocate Style, Grafternauts, and I work with Pinex doing some blogs for them as well. And thanks for having me on.
Amazing. So I'm going to go through a list of questions just to ask you, and I would love to get your perspective and start a conversation. So starting off with the first question, what are some factors that you look to consider when choosing which indexer to delegate to?
I think everyone has a different way to do it. I think it's important to be able to contact an indexer and have a way to communicate with them. Some indexers seem to be like not able to be contacted, or some are better than others, having websites and telegrams and more active and easier to contact, but some are not as easy. So I think that's an important piece of it. I think the return obviously is part of it, but I also like to not go for the bigger centralized indexers. That's just my take on it. Everyone else has a different one, but I like to try to kind of spread it around and decentralize in that way.
Gotcha. And do you have any specific expectations in terms of transparency, performance, and communication? You mentioned a little bit about communication there, but anything around like how transparent the indexer is, what kind of performance, stuff like that?
I think a lot of it kind of goes on the delegator to make sure that the applications are closed in time, but I would expect someone to have some telegram or some way to say, hey, what's going on with this allocation? It's over, the 28 days at a minimum. You don't have to be super proactive, but I would think there would be some kind of line of communication to the delegators.
And are there any particular metrics that you prioritize in terms of evaluating the performance or maybe reliability of an indexer?
I think it's good they have a ton of allocations, but I think as far as just making sure they're closed on time, that they have some communications or they don't have to be, in my opinion, the highest APY, because that's not always the best indication, because it's not always accurate, because they could have just had a ton of people on delegate, or things change, so it's not always a metric. It has to be historically good or higher than usual.
Got it. What I'm realizing is a commonality or a thread throughout all of the answers that you're giving me is that communication is very important for you. Are there any particular channels that you would prefer in terms of getting updates from indexers? Maybe Discord, forums, Twitter, maybe a newsletter. What do you have any preferences there?
I like Discord, and Telegram is nice. But Twitter is also a good avenue for people to put out, things that are happening. Like if hey, I just closed all these allocations, or, I think it's important also for indexers to kind of help, because some delegators might be sleepy and not know, that everyone's moving to Arbitrum. So I think it's important to kind of help spread the word in any way, shape, or form through social media to help delegators that might not pay attention as much. Some people just kind of delegate and let it sit, and they don't understand what's happening with the ecosystem. So it's important to kind of just try to communicate in some fashion.
Gotcha. We've got a few questions coming in through the chat, so I'll turn my attention to those. So Josh asks, 𝗶𝗀𝗧, have you ever undelegated from an indexer? If so, what made you decide to do that?
I think the first person I delegated to, I didn't know what I was doing, and that might be one of the challenges for new delegators, is they just go for the high APY, and that's the only thing they know until they get to understand the ecosystem. So it might look good at first glance, but then it works its way. That indexer might work their way down to the bottom of the pack for the returns, and that's what happened to me. And so I kind of saw that there was much better returns with other indexers, and I undelegated and moved to someone else that was more reputable and I thought was better.
Gotcha. And then there was another question that I missed earlier from Josh, which is our ability to contact indexer. What kind of questions are you hoping to have answered / what communication are you looking for?
I just go by community always. Some people are really on top of allocations, maybe too much, and they just ask, hey, this allocation's, over 28 days, but they might not understand that it's a backup allocation, or or it's a very small piece of the pie, and it might be something that's just getting queries that's not totally supported, like a base subgraph. So that might go beyond the 28 days and people might not understand that. They just see it's over. So they want to ask the indexer, hey, why is this over? Or what's happening with this? And then
Gotcha.
there could be other questions like with the migration, they could ask questions like, are you guys migrating over so I can move to L2, that type of thing. That's not always, there doesn't need to be a ton of communication, but just in case you have a question.
Gotcha. And then in terms of expectations, in terms of rewards from delegation, do you have any in regards to that, or so you mentioned you start off, well, most people start off by looking for the highest APY, but then they discover various aspects of indexing and change their perspective. So do you have a ballpark figure of what you're looking for in terms of return?
I don't necessarily want it to be in the very top, but competitive, I guess, is what's good, and not to try to be super greedy with that, and just I think it's more important to find someone that knows what they're doing. I think with someone that could get slashed is not worth risking a little bit more return. And I think it might become more important when they possibly talks of slashing the delegation as well. So it's important to do your homework on picking someone that is involved with the community, that knows what they're doing and has less of a chance of getting slashed. So that's why I don't think it's worthy of trying to go for the highest, because it's like a risk reward.
Exactly. And how do you just to dive a bit deeper into the risk reward, you mentioned indexes getting slashed. Are there any other aspects that go into that risk reward ratio for you?
I think just my take, I wouldn't want to go with someone that has a ton of delegation. I would maybe sacrifice a little bit of return to have someone that give to an indexer that might be smaller, or that's just my opinion, to help spread out so there's not one central indexer that has control of everything. It's just my take. Other people might not care. They just want to get the best return possible, and they don't care about that aspect.
Awesome. We love a good principal delegator. So two things. One, we've got Payne in the chat appreciating your radio voice, which is lovely to hear. And then we have a and then we have a question from Marc Andre saying, is query serving an important factor when choosing an indexer?
I think it could play a role, hypothetically. I think that's another thing to look out for. I know the hosted service sunsetting, I think that's not something people pay attention too much to, but it's slowly but surely becoming more of a factor. And I'd like to see what happens when that goes away and all the subgraphs get kind of migrated over to the decentralized side. I think it could play a much bigger factor. So it's something definitely to keep an eye out for. And it is a little bit extra rewards. So I think it is an important factor that could help in upcoming months.
Gotcha. And then we want to go a bit back to your first time delegating. You mentioned it was a while back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Enson asks, did you have any hesitation before your initial delegation experience? What helped you through the process what helped you through that process as being a first time delegator?
I think, to be honest, and maybe everyone has a different take, but I feel like the hardest part to me was to leave like the central exchange. Like that whole first time when you send your GRT or any token, you sweat it out and you don't know what's going to happen, and it just goes into some place and then pops up somewhere else. And that part is probably pretty difficult. I have some friends that do not want to leave the exchange because they don't know what's going to happen. And so that was a little bit nerve-wracking, and I just kind of talked through, looked at videos, and I think that helped me finally get my DRT to MetaMask wallet. But that was the big hurdle, and for a first-time person in crypto, I think that's something that's it's hard to do the first time because you're not used to it. But talking to people, I think, is good advice, and looking at tutorials and getting used to MetaMask. And then I think choosing an indexer is difficult because there's a few different places to look for APY, but it's hard to understand the whole thing. And so I think that's people usually gravitate towards the biggest indexer or the most return as a first-time delegator.
Amazing. I appreciate the advice. Hopefully there are some newer delegators who can learn from your experiences. So Derek asks the question, in a recent Horizon post, there was mention of changing delegation from non-slashable to slashable, but preferred position. Are any delegators talking about this change? What's the current response to an adjustment like that?
I think from what I hear in chats and stuff, the people aren't totally aware of that. It's not well known, but I think they're very adverse to it at first. But I think it's something that happens in other protocols pretty frequently and regularly. So, and there wasn't too many slashings from indexers that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it happens too often. So I don't know that people kind of grasp the idea or fully understand that yet. I think that was pretty much in the forums, and I'm not certain that everyone goes into them and reads all that.
Got it. What's your perspective, just out of curiosity?
I think it's part of doing your homework with the indexer, and as long as your indexer is doing the right thing and you pick someone who's reputable, I don't think it's a problem. So I don't have a hard stance on that. I just I think everyone should be shared in responsibility of making sure everyone's doing the right thing. So
Gotcha.
not opposed to it.
Got it. And then Josh asks the question, do you periodically check on your delegations to see how the API floats around? If so, how often?
Maybe once in a while. I just keep an eye on things and closings. It's not a key factor, but I do use like the Graphtonauts app to, when things are closing, and you kind of notice what's going on there. And I think that an app like that helps keep, not be a sleepy delegator and see what's going on, and keep an eye on your allocations.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm sure the Graphtonauts are an incredible resource. We have a few folks on the Graphtonauts here in the chat as well, which is pretty cool. Did you buy GRT then discover delegation? If so, how long between obtaining GRT did you discover delegation, or did you buy a GRT in order to delegate? That's a question from Derek. Good question.
I bought GRT as more just to have it as an investment, and then I learned of staking after the fact. And there was talks of delegation on the network, and that was like a big hurdle for me. So I didn't do it right away. I waited several months and talked to a lot of people, and made myself comfortable before I moved it to MetaMask. It was not familiar with that, so that was a hurdle I wanted to overcome before I moved it to the network and delegated that way.
Gotcha. And then we got a question from Vince saying, is Graphtonauts your go-to app, official Explorer GraphScan?
That is my go-to app, and for a quick reference, I do like GraphScan because you can just punch in the address at the top, and it kind of gives you a quick rundown of what's going on. But for tracking long-term, that's my go-to app. But for a quick, just to check, I like GraphScan's user ability where you just punch in the address at the top and can see what's going on pretty quickly. It's good for also subgraph IDs, checking that when you don't know the name. You're looking for how the connection between the subgraph ID, the QM name, versus the name of the subgraph.
Gotcha. And you mentioned a little bit about some of the challenges you faced in the early days of delegating, and then a few just throughout your experience. Can you elaborate on any other challenges you're facing as a delegator? And then maybe if there are any challenges that indexers could potentially remedy, maybe it would be a good idea to share those such that they can help you out.
I think the first part was just just the indexers kind of helping educate people on how to use them, why to use their particular indexer, and just kind of things that they're doing. I don't think all the delegators know all the activities that indexers do in the ecosystem. I think a lot of you guys do a lot of things that they may not know about, and that might help. Just kind of self-promotion, I think, is good to know what's going on and what indexer is doing what, and I think that might help people say, hey, that guy's doing all this stuff, it's worthy of some delegation. And I'm sure a lot of people do that already, but I think that kind of helps. And I think self-promotion helps, and educating people on how to delegate and just what's going on with their allocations, and just steady communication.
Right, I see. Communication seems to be a massive thread here, which is quite interesting to pick up on. We've got a few more questions coming into the chat. Keep them coming, guys. This is amazing. Josh asks, do you have a portion of your GRT undelegated due to the 28-day thought period, or you keep it all working in the ecosystem?
I personally just have like 97% delegated, and then I mess around with curation, so I have a small portion of that. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would just throw it all in delegation to earn. Why not?
Got it. Awesome. And then Derek asks, Bitcoin has the stacking sats movement. Are there any delegators that stack GRT and delegate it regularly?
Just going off a chat, it seems like people do kind of DCA into allocations. They save up for a little bit and then they add in, especially with the move to ARB. It's more realistic to do that. With ETH, gas was prohibitive and harder to do that to justify the cost of doing that. But with ARB, it seems like that's happening more often, and it makes more sense to do that.
And then Josh asked the question, assuming you're talking about curating on L2, what's keeping you curating? Disregard if not.
I just enjoyed doing it, and there is some profitability. It's very small, so I mean, all at Walmart curating, so it's not like a big earning, but it's just something I do just because I was involved with it, and just kind of a habit to keep it up.
Gotcha. We got a couple people typing, so I'll let them type, and then in the meantime, I'll ask you the question. Are there specific tools, resources, or support that you feel like are missing in the delegator ecosystem? Could be interesting to share that. Maybe indexes could step up and provide that, or maybe Graphtronauts, because we've got a few Graphtronauts in the chat here.
I mean, self-promote the Graphtronauts app is pretty good, to be honest, and GraphScan as well. It gives you notifications on allocations that are closing, and every time you get a reward. I think that's important. It's just it's a little thing that keeps your foot in the door and make sure you're keeping some eye on what's happening. When you see no allocation rewards never coming in, then maybe that would be a key indicator to check what's going on. I know some people are more involved than others, but I think it's worth getting some notifications to see what's going on with your rewards, and to me is the least you could do as delegator.
Gotcha. We've got a few more questions coming through. Keep it up, guys. This is awesome. Joss asks, are you keeping up to date with other projects too, or GRT is the main thing you're watching at the moment? Keep in mind you keep in mind that your response will be financial advice.
I'd say GRT is probably my biggest, most active involvement, and I try to keep it up to date on all that stuff. But there are small projects. It's just interesting to me in crypto in general. So I try to keep up to date with other things that are happening. But that's the biggest one for me.
Gotcha. And then there's a more general question, I guess, for you and also others as well from Payne, which is there anyone even using the official Graph Explorer or the official Explorer?
I didn't want to put it out there that I don't use that. It's definitely helpful, and I use that as well. But for quick hits, the other things like for notifications, I like Graphnauts. For quick hits, I like GraphScan. But definitely, I think the most reliable one, more than likely, is the Graph Explorer.
Gotcha. And then we got a question for Vince asking, is bridging GRT to ARB from ETH/exchanges? Oh, geez, so many questions. Is bridging GRT to ARB from ETH/exchanges a roadblock for delegators in your chats, or makes them take a pause? Do you think GRT on ARB or GRT on ARB on exchanges like Coinbase would onboard more?
I think it is a blocker for some people. Not everyone's accustomed to doing bridges. I think it would help tremendously if Coinbase would allow withdrawals on Arbitrum, and I'm hopeful they do soon. It would be so much easier. I do try to put together tutorials on and helping people, but that is a big challenge for people that aren't used to bridges, and I think that's makes people susceptible to be hacked or use the wrong thing or fall to a fraud. So it's something that I think is a roadblock, and I'm hopeful that more exchanges other than Binance starts using Arbitrum.
Amazing. And then Enson asks the question, from a purely delegated perspective, do you have any thoughts on Graph Horizon and how any of it will positively or negatively impact the future of delegators and their experience?
I think there's a lot of things going on with Graph Horizon. That's a lot of unknowns. So I think I am curious of how it all pans out. And with these other data services, is that something the delegators can be involved with getting rewards and somehow be involved, or is it just indexers? So there is questions around it, how it will all work for just a pure delegator. But I guess I just keep an eye on the forum, and just see how it's all going to work out.
This is a really fun question, and I'm also quite interested to hear your perspective as a delegator. Do you delegate via liquid staking protocols like Tenderize? If not, why not?
Yeah, I do a little bit with it, but I think it's not for everyone. But I think there is ways that it could benefit. I mean, I don't advise doing it, or not advise doing it, but I think it could help you if you were to do something like borrow from it and then flip that to staking GRT and then kind of compound your interest. That's a way to, an interesting way to amplify your return doing things like that. And I'm just curious to see other protocols work it into them, like Aave or things like that, where it's more into DeFi. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Indeed, indeed. We got another question here saying, what do you think about possible AI data services being integrated into the Graph ecosystem? Do you think this will affect how indexers choose in which indexer to delegate to?
That's a hard question. I don't know how it would all work out. So not certain. I think it might because, but it's hard to say as a delegator because I don't know how the reward structure would change or if it would at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, who knows what the future holds, but it's definitely going to be interesting going forward. I want to pause here and maybe give you the opportunity, Paulie B, to ask questions to the indexers. Maybe there's some things that you have in your mind that you'd like to share with indexers, maybe ask them. So if you have anything, feel free to share that, and maybe we can get some indexers to answer some of your questions.
Because I think most of the indexers have their own to communicate. Is there any way that I know it's against the decentralization, but it would be cool to opt in if you wanted to have some kind of line of communication, like an email or something through the Explorer. I don't know if that's ever something someone suggested before. I just find that a lot of people sleeping on the job. Their stuff's just sitting there on layer 1 and they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, we do have plans for spinning up an indexer newsletter, but I'm not sure how that will address. I guess, are there any delegator newsletters out there? I'm very curious. I'm assuming not. It's an interesting question. Yeah, because I guess it would be useful for delegators to subscribe to some venue and get regular updates such that they no longer are sleepy delegators. Derek says we have a contact us form on our website, and I wouldn't be opposed to exposing that inbox for delegators. That's cool. That'd be really cool. I think that would put you in a really good place, Derek, as an indexer. Seeing as communication seems to be a big aspect here that delegators are looking for. Payne says, would be lovely to have an on-chain chat via subgraphs. Yes, that would be awesome. A man can dream. Website and details for many indexes are in Explorer. Yes, that's very true, Mark. That's a good point. And it's worth reaching out to delegators to hear from them. Howard has what looks like a question. On the topic of delegation, as a delegator, would folks rather delegate once to an indexer and have him use the GRT across various data services they offer, or instead have the indexer split up the identity to being on a per data service, e.g. streaming fast A, streaming fast B, and have delegators delegate for each data service for an indexer separately? That's a very good and very specific question. Paulie B, do you have any perspective there?
That would be interesting to do that. I guess with so many unknowns, it's hard to really get a grasp of that because we don't know exactly how it's going to pan out. And so it would be a lot of unknowns, but I think people would definitely be interested in delegating in different ways. I would think it would be kind of cool to do like a one-time delegation to multiple people or some kind of avenue like that. That would be interesting.
So in your perspective, would you be down to delegate once as a delegator and have that GRT across various different data services, or would you prefer the separation?
I like the idea to do various data services. That would be kind of neat to do and diversify a little bit. And as long as you could change it if one wasn't working out.
There you go. Hopefully that's useful, Howard. That was a very good question. Let's see. Any more questions? I see a few people typing. Thanks for the comments. Awesome. Glad to hear it was useful.
Would there be any possibility of partnering with like a big exchange like Coinbase and them setting some kind of set rate? I don't know, it could be low, like 3 to 5%, and then that whatever gets collected there gets dispersed amongst indexers on the network. I think a lot of people are, like I said, I think they're adverse to bringing their GRT off of exchanges, and there's no way to talk them into it. So they would be into doing something like that, and it would probably be advantageous for them because they're getting some reward versus just sitting there, and that would also help indexers get a return as well, more than they would. I don't know all the legalities between that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that Coinbase has they do various different node operation activities on various different networks. I'm not sure if they have a index on the graph. I don't think so. But effectively, you're looking for a way to get your it looks like Binance, according to Marc-Andre, is offering GRT staking. Is that kind of what you're referring to? You would like on exchange staking options?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I would rather just do it on network, but I'm saying there's a ton of people I'm sure that would take advantage of some staking on central exchange like Coinbase, and then that would in turn be sent to the the indexers, and they could make use of it. Because a lot of people probably just have it sitting on the central exchange.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've got a just general question looking for your perspective here. What do you think about verifiability solutions on the graph? There are teams working on ways to verify data on the graph using zero-knowledge proofs. What are your perspective on that? What's your perspective on that as the delegator?
As a delegator, I think it's something that's definitely interesting. I don't know how it would play into delegation portion of things. It does seem like Semiotic is working on that. So it's hard to say for sure how it would work into the whole system of earning and work into delegation.
Got it. Let's see if we've got any other questions. Keep them coming, guys. I see there's a bunch of chats in the chat box. You've mentioned already quite a few times. I'll ask you another question while we're waiting for more indexers to ask questions. You mentioned quite a bit that communication is a big aspect for you as a delegator. Do you have any further and self-promotion as well is also another thing you mentioned. Do you have any further feedback or suggestions for indexers on how they can improve and attract maybe your delegation, or from your experience, the delegations, from your experience being in the delegator community, like the delegation of other folks as well?
I think just helping people answer questions kind of gives people respect for an indexer, like whether it's on Discord or the forum, just helping people that are stuck in certain situations. Hey, I can't access this. I think just helping them through any situation that they're stuck in might give them, hey, this guy helps me out. He's helps the community. I think there's that kind of thing. Answering questions helps people get a good feel of indexers, and that they're committed to the community, and it gives people the sense, hey, if they help me, then they care about the community and well-being of their delegators.
Amazing. We've got a question from Steak Machine saying, do you want any new features in different tools to make the life of a your life as a delegator easier?
I think it would be cool to have a little bit better UI on the Explorer for the delegation part of it. But I think there are tools out there that help get notifications. But I think that's the main thing, is just to know, keep your head in the game and to know what's going on with your investment and your delegation.
I think Steak Machine just shared Web3 alert for notifications. Cool. For the final 8 minutes, if any indexes want to come off, GraphScan has built in. Oh, interesting. I did not know that. Did you know that? 𝗨𝗀𝗶𝗀𝗀 GraphScan has built in Web3 alerts.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell people, to either do GraphNots or GraphScan as the two options. Kind of help them know when closings come in there, get the rewards to remind them.
Amazing. As we're coming to the final 7 minutes of today's conversation, if any indexers want to come off mute and ask any further questions, feel free to, or we can keep going via text. I see a new question here, asking Steak Machine asking, did you try web3alert.io? That was for someone in the chat, but I'm assuming it's also useful for you to answer as well, 𝗨𝗨𝗶.
I think that's the same one that they use on GraphScan. I tried that.
Got it. And there's a question here from Josh, asking, as a delegator, if you can change one thing about the protocol, what would it be?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, and tomorrow one thing would change about the protocol, what would it be?
Probably to index every chain right now.
Yes, that would be pretty cool. Soon TM. Anything else?
I just get rid of the hosted service, but I mean that's all in progress. So
It is indeed. Okay, so Pedro seems to have responded to the question from Steak Machine. So I thought that was a question, but it's not. Just to highlight, as Pili has put in the chat, don't forget to grab your POAP for today's session. The code is graph-sunrise. So feel free to grab your your POAP there. I wave a wand, fast forward all the updates from the new era. Yes. Shipping. We can't ship fast enough. I agree. We got to ship faster. Okay. Any other questions? I see Josh is typing. We got another 5 minutes to cover. I will give my wand. Yes. Fingers crossed. Yeah, we could always do with more shipping at a faster rate. New era can't come any sooner. Any further questions for 𝗨𝗨𝗶 as relates to him being an active delegator in the ecosystem? I see Steak Machine typing. Keep delegating, yes. Yeah, and thanks for the session. Awesome. It's good to hear. It was useful. Before we POAP, POAP is here, Payne. I'll just tag you. Yeah, POAP is there. Before we wrap today's session, I'm very curious from indexers to know, first of all, is this session useful? Because we are planning on doing these more frequently, and if so, what kind of information would you like to know from delegators? If you want to type in the chat and share a bit about what specifically you're looking to learn from delegators as to how you can maybe improve your attractiveness for delegators, then please do share either in the chat now, or you can DM me at a later date. And while folks are doing that, I want to say a massive thank you to 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀 for coming along to share a bit about his experience delegating. And, he's been a delegator for a while now, and his experience just being in the delegating community as well. I hope this was useful for you all as indexers, and I just want to say thank you to 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Jesus Christ, Mike, that was the worst time you could have used the sound effect. That's hilarious. But yeah, thank you so much, 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀, for that. Any final questions as we come into the final 3 minutes of today's conversation? I see Josh is typing. See also Pele is typing. How many t-shirts would it take to bribe a delegator? How many t-shirts, 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀?
Just one.
Oh wow,
I'm good.
okay.
And a graph socks.
There you go. There you go, Josh. That's you locked it in the bag. Is that something? Pedro, I think is a joke. You can't bribe delegators in the protocol. I think it was just a joke. I tried the metaverse sweater NFT and it didn't gain much traction. Alrighty. Billy's sharing some alpha for next week. Next week we have indexers going to learn all about GraphSeer, so the graph explorer that GraphOps has been building. So we kind of touched on a few different explorers in today's conversation, so it'd be very exciting to hear more about GraphSeer next week. So with that, I want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for joining today's conversation. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week for some more alpha. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.